At this moment, there is a fear that history will repeat itself.
There will be another epidemic. There will be another pandemic.
H5N1 is the strain of avian flu that has the world waiting.
What makes sense to plan for is a worst-case scenario.
You know, the differentiation between a pandemic and an epidemic is really the geographic range and spread.
It's going to be fairly impossible to really prepare completely for something like this. The virus is very flexible. It's very difficult to predict. It's a very unpredictable virus.
Is the world ready for a pandemic?
The sad fact is that our nation is not prepared to handle a major flu outbreak, let alone a pandemic.
The pandemic is kind of the worst of all situations because these would be types of influenza viruses that no one in the world has ever seen.
Despite the facts, the fear of a pandemic should be put in perspective.
At this moment, there is no pandemic influenza in the United States.
The threat should not be overplayed. It is a serious threat. There is an element of scaremongering that is causing unnecessary economic damage.
I don't think there is anything like this. A big part of it is just the media, just hyping it up.
At this point, there is no reason for panic. We just need to prepare.
It's a big deal because if it happens sooner rather than later, we're really not ready.
Hello, I'm Monica Robbins. We're going to explore and explain the anxiety over a threat of a pandemic, investigate whether Cleveland's ready should a pandemic strike, and tell you what you can do to protect you and your family.
The first thing you need to know is that there's a fire going on, and it's kind of like a smoke detector or an alarm, that if you can be alerted early on, containment is an option.
Many researchers and doctors view a pandemic as a raging wildfire, difficult to stop once it starts. They see the recent appearances of the H5N1 virus in Asia as the sparks of a potentially deadly outbreak of a flu virus, bringing back memories of an earlier public health catastrophe. In March of 1918, what appeared to be a flu epidemic started at a military base in Kansas. The flu spread to other bases and then quietly disappeared. With a vengeance, it reappeared 5 months later, and this time it was deadly.
So suddenly it had gone from just another flu to a real killer flu, a real terrible, terrible disease. And then it broke out from there to Boston, into the Philadelphia Naval Yard, and into Philadelphia, and then marched relentlessly across the country. It reached San Francisco in about December or so.
The flu epidemic became a pandemic as infected U.S. soldiers on their way to the battlefields of the First World War carried the virus to Europe. From there, the virus spread throughout the world. 20% of the world's population was infected with the disease. Unlike normal flu, the age group most affected was between 15 and 35. Of the estimated 40 million people infected, 20 million died worldwide, with 675,000 deaths in the U.S.
There have been some projections made that a new pandemic with about the same virulence of a virus would kill maybe 350 million people, 1.9 million in the United States.
The pandemic of 1918 was caused by an avian or bird influenza labeled H1N1. It could be transmitted from person to person. The current virus of H5N1 is not able to openly transmit from an infected person to another person. However, 8 years ago in Hong Kong, an outbreak gave proof that the new H5N1 avian virus can transfer from chickens to humans with deadly results.
18 people had documented infections. There were 6 deaths. Most of these were small children, less than 13.
The virus transferred from human to human in only a few cases. If the virus is able to mutate and make that transmission easier and more rapidly, the fears of doctors and scientists will come true.
Right now we're in the process of being able to detect that, and maybe it's been happening in the past and it's just gone unnoticed, and now we've just got better diagnosis and better understanding of the whole event, so we can actually recognize when this happens.
The virus has emerged in the chicken populations of Asia, Southeast Asia, and China. Quick action and the containment of infected birds have kept that virus at bay.
There is no reason to be worried at this moment in the United States. There is very little reason to be worried in Asia. If you look at the incredible amount of poultry that's produced in China, which is the largest producer of poultry in the world, And the number of outbreaks we have seen in people in China, it is limited, it's very small.
The deaths of chicken flocks will signal alarms to researchers.
This is such a dramatic disease. It kills more than 90% of the chickens within 3-4 days. We won't miss it.
Migratory birds may bring the avian flu to American farms and endanger our chicken flocks. Surveillance labs will be the first line of defense to stop the further spread of the disease in the U.S.
We have 85 isolations today and 30 PCRs for her.
This is the front line of the U.S. avian flu battle, Cornell University. Their labs are responsible for identifying avian flu in live chickens that are shipped and sold in New York City. If avian flu reaches New York City's live bird markets, the farm that supplied the chickens will be identified in these labs. Stopping the deadly H5N1 avian flu from reaching the city is a daunting task.
It's always in the back of our minds. Is it there or isn't there, and how it's affecting someone out there.
The whole system is set up as checks and balances, so hopefully there's no mistakes. Nothing gets through here that shouldn't get through here, or incorrectly identified, or anything of that nature.
The goal of the lab is to identify avian flu quickly as being a potential H5N1 virus and then have it immediately confirmed.
I would imagine that our traceability here in this country is a little more straightforward than it would be in a third world situation.
In as quickly as 2 days, a virus can be identified and confirmed. Immediate action is taken. Depending on the situation, the entire flock of chickens can be destroyed and the farm quarantined.
If we don't do that, then it will become a major pandemic. But I think that first thing we'll see it in chickens. And with chickens we can deal. If it gets into humans, that's a completely different ballgame.
And that's the fear. The H5N1 virus will learn to transmit person to person, and vaccination may not be an option during the first outbreak.
Current vaccine technology requires growth of the virus in eggs, which takes several weeks and months, and it literally is 5 to 6 months between the time the vaccine is formulated and the time that the first vaccine rolls off the assembly line, so to speak. And that would be too much time in the setting of a pandemic.
With the hope of saving valuable time, the current virus found in China is being used to create a vaccine.
And I'm asking that the Congress fund $1.2 billion for the Department of Health and Human Services to purchase enough doses of this vaccine from manufacturers to vaccinate 20 million people.
Unfortunately, the vaccine that the government is buying may not be able to stop the virus once it mutates.
We're dealing with a very unpredictable virus, so ideally there's more that can be done, but from a practical point of view, there's only so much that can be done because we don't really know what we're dealing with.
Uncertainty is the most difficult feeling for most of those involved in planning for the potential pandemic.
As we all watched the coverage around Hurricane Katrina, I'm sure everybody involved in pandemic planning was in the back of their mind thinking about how this applies to pandemic planning, and I've heard a lot of people say that it really heightened their concerns about security, for one thing.
With so many warnings and so much knowledge of the threat we face, there's no excuse for failure this time around.
I'm concerned about it. The track record with disasters is not the best at the moment. And this may be so overwhelming that if it would become really a pandemic, that it will be difficult.
Despite the hype and fear, it may be a good thing to be aware, making sure that history doesn't repeat itself.
It's a very different situation to the situation in 1918, where nobody knew anything about influenza, and nobody really knew that even the viruses existed back in 1918.
If you don't know what's going on until after the brush fire has spread, containment is no longer an option. And that's, I think, the situation we would all like to avoid.
If we get complacent about this risk, then we invite trouble, if it ever happens.
Coming up, is Cleveland ready for a pandemic, and how would we handle it? And later, what can you do to protect yourself or your loved ones from the flu?